question of what is socialism only emerges at particular times when people feel like we've got to do something. We've got to get rid of this country where we're, I mean, this kind of economy where we're at war with each other all the time. We are more afraid of each other than we are of wild beasts.
Yeah.
When everything seems to be falling apart, and they begin asking, what kinds of different kind of society are we going to create that will make us more caring of one another, that will be less dangerous to the planet and to everything alive, and that will sort of make us brothers and sisters. I think it's an emotional thing that they're talking about. And I think we have to find out how to grapple with this, you know, and talk to people about this. And I'm going to talk about it in the way that I know how to talk about it, which is not always the same as everybody else. But I hope other people will talk about it the way they talk about it. I have lived through a whole lot of discussions of socialism. I have lived through a lot of periods when socialism was discussed. And so I have some sense of the kind of crisis that leads to this kind of discussion, and how different the situation is in each period. For example, in the early 19th century, the word capitalism began to appear for the first time, and so did the word socialism. And the word socialism appeared because people like Wordsworth could no longer wander lonely as a cloud of hills and vales and see a crowd of yellow daffodils. You know? So a kind of socialism emerged as something that would enable us to get away from these machines that were putting skilled workers out of work, that would, you know, not destroy the countryside, that would not have us getting and spending, as Wordsworth said, laying waste all our powers, and not seeing the sense of nature that is ours. I don't know how many people read that and know that poem, but I memorized it 90-some years ago when I was in school. And I've always thought of that, and I always associate utopian socialism with the Luddites, and with people who were afraid that an industrial society was going to come on us and devour everything that was human, that was natural. And so try and picture that. I mean, try and picture, get that in your mind, picture what it was like in the early 1900s, early 1800s rather, when the machines were coming, industrial society was coming, and the Luddites emerged, and the Romantics emerged, and so forth. That was one period when people began thinking about socialism. And they thought about that as getting back to nature. They thought about being non-materialistic and Then came Marx. And Marx was a very young man when he got this vision of communism. And he thought communism would be a society where each would have according to his needs, and each would give according to his or her abilities. And he thought that is what we should be fighting for. But to have that, we've got to have abundance. And what will give us abundance? Industrial society will give us abundance. And who will bring us abundance? The capitalists won't do it, because they're so competitive. They're so concerned with their own private personal needs. They want to build hotels and resorts and buy Rolls Royces and, you know, things like that. They don't care about creating plenty so that people can have according to what they need, and they can give and become more human. And he said the only way we can do that is if we create socialism. And by socialism, he meant that the workers, who he thought were not competitive, would take over the state, and they would be able to advance the rapid development of the productive forces and create this society of plenty. And so socialism for him was workers' power, the collectivity of the workers taking over the state, as contrasted to the greedy private capitalists. So try and get that between you and I. In fact, I was just reading the other day that someone said that Marx wanted to carry the bourgeois revolution to its extreme. That was what the bourgeois revolution had been originally, to produce plenty. And that was what he was trying to do. And there's a lot of truth in that. Then comes the United States. And the United States is a country where there's plenty. And it didn't take the workers to create it. I mean, I don't mean that the workers had no part in creating it, but the capitalists were in charge. And they made the technological revolutions, and we have plenty. So radicals go into the land, and they workers say to them, what is socialism, and why should we fight for it? And they don't know how to answer, because socialism in countries like Russia and in the Third World, for example, were essentially for the workers and the peasants to take power and increase the productivity of the country and create the plenty that would be necessary for people not to be impoverished. But that's not our reality. And so when workers ask radicals, why should we be socialists? They don't have to answer. What is socialism? Why should we fight it? They begin stammering and stuttering. And if you've ever tried doing it to explain to an American why we should have socialism, you probably have had a difficult time doing it. So I want us to think about that, and think about how the different circumstances create different discussions and make things like words like socialism, which become sort of catchwords, meaningful or non-meaningful. And so we understand why a country like Russia, for example, which was undeveloped in 1917, would become a socialist country. We call the Union the Socialist United Soviet Republics. We understand why countries in Latin America are more likely to be socialist. We understand why undeveloped countries are more likely to be socialist and be openly socialist and have no difficulty, radicals have no difficulty recruiting. So what do we do here? The trouble is, Obama hasn't the vaguest understanding of this history. He doesn't understand what's going on. And so when you watch him, people begin talking, Geisler talks, I mean his advisors and Charles Summers, they're all people who are bankers. They have the vaguest understanding of all this also. So we have this discussion going on in the press about socialism. It's only between the people who want to keep hold of the banks and the other people who are thinking about the government being more rational in controlling the banks. That's the depth of the discussion. They're not dealing with the question of the planet. They're not dealing with the fact that there's as much violence on Mac Avenue as in Iraq. They're not dealing with the fact that 10 years ago we had Columbine, and just a few weeks ago we had Greenwood. They're not dealing with the actual reality of the violence, the competition, the collapse of all our institutions. And that's what that's why you see Obama having such difficulty. I mean, he was so eloquent during the campaign, but he's beginning to lose his eloquence if you just listen to him. Because how to grapple with this question, he doesn't know how. And people are talking about, and I want to figure out how do we talk about this with our friends, with our fellow students, with our family. And I think the way we have to talk about it is with some sense of this historical understanding, with this understanding that what's happening right now is that people are actually beginning to grapple with this question at the grassroots. People are beginning urban agriculture to grow our own food. They're actually beginning to think about how we can exchange goods and services, how we can begin relating to one another in a different way.